Hello and welcome to the Slackware ARM vlog. I'm Stuart Winter, the platform architect and lead developer for the ARM port of Slackware, and here's Brent, who is a developer of Slackware developers and a contributor and a contributor to the ARM port as well. Hi Brent,
Hello.
how are you doing?
Okay.
Good.
Hanging out.
So what I thought we'd do in this session is begin to implement one of the future innovations on the roadmap, which on this occasion will be the installer variant for the Raspberry Pi. So what that means is that, so for example, presently in June, or towards the end of June 2025, the we're currently running Slackware, rather, we're currently running Linux 6.12, which is the long-term release of the kernel. We're currently running that in Slackware ARch64 current, which is the development branch of Slackware. And that doesn't have, well, I don't know if it has support for the Raspberry Pi 5 or it does, but it's inadequate or it's unstable or whatever. What I want to do is to begin working on creating an installer variant of the Slackware ARch64 installer. And the variant means that instead of providing the installer with the mainline or the upstream Linux kernel, which is how what Slackware uses, we don't use vendor forks. I would actually create a vendor fork version of the Slackware installer, only though because it allows us a little bit more freedom in our forward momentum, meaning that, so for example, Brent can boot it on the Raspberry Pi 5 and it probably just work. So whereas at the moment it doesn't work with the Linux 6.12 kernel. Eventually the Raspberry Pi 5 kernel, support rather, eventually the Raspberry Pi 5 support will end up, make its way into the upstream kernel. But what we've found is that, when you were working on the Raspberry Pi 4 support a few years ago, it doesn't really work that well. It booted and it worked, but it would hang, things would crash, and then it would work for a release, and then it would be broken in the next major release. So
Yeah,
it's
the
always a
Wi-Fi
little
and
bit,
stuff is always breaking.
it's and so to me that's not exactly ideal, and it's also one of the reasons why I don't really particularly hold the Raspberry Pi in much favor. I don't really give it much. It's not a favorable hardware model to choose. Mostly, well, at this point, it's purely because of that, actually. Previously, it was also because they used proprietary bootloader. It's like, come on, just pick one that's not.
Yeah, like reinventing the wheel.
Yeah, so, but I get why, though, it's easier, when you want to move forwards, it's easier to control your environment, you know. But
Yeah.
then again, they take stuff from Broadcom and it's proprietary, but whatever. I'm past all of that now. Because it already works, everything works. So I'm sort of over that frustration. But still, the Raspberry Pi 5, well, the Raspberry Pis obviously are popular and will remain so because they're very good at marketing and have good connections with magazines and so that's cool. And everything actually is very well documented when you look at the website. At least I think it's very well documented. Right. So really, because it's it's very to me, it's going to be pretty straightforward to actually implement this, to implement and install a variant. It's going to be really easy. So I wanted to begin writing just a bit of code to convert the existing installer images, which is I'm going to take the full Slackware installer image, which is called the AIO. I can't speak today, can I? The AIO, which means all in one installer. So basically that's similar to the x86 DVD where you download the image, dump it onto an optical media or a USB stick and boot it. And then you install everything you want. All of the Slackware packages are contained on that USB stick or on that media. So we have the same thing for Slackware AR64. But again, it only includes the official upstream kernel. So I had a look at the code here. So where's the code? So I wanted going on today platform bootware. So I see. So and because I've renamed them now, I need to remember which it is. Is it this one? I think it's this one, isn't it? Yeah. So I looked at this code. This is the code that builds the installer images. And I thought, I know, I could see if I could modify this code to be able to just use the Slackware ARM, or rather the Raspberry Pi kernel fork package rather than the Slackware one. I looked at this code and I thought, no, I'm not changing this code to do something like that, because it's something more, it's more of a hack. It's just something, it's just like, I'm not doing that. Plus the fact that this code actually doesn't, this generates the image, but it doesn't generate the AIO version. The Slackware packages are added afterwards by a different script, which is this one.
like that one.
That
Yeah.
one. Is that one? No, that's not that one. This one. Yeah, because I renamed them all, you see, and now I've forgotten the names. So this script actually is a post-processing script, which takes the output of the installer. It takes the installer images, which are output from the other scripts I just showed you, and it mounts them, and then it adds an additional, it decompresses them, mounts them, and then, oh my goodness, I can't believe I wrote all this stuff. And then it increases the size of the image, adds a partition to it, and then rsyncs or copies all of the Slackware images, all of the Slackware media minus the source and the installer to that partition, and then unmounts it and then compresses it, and then that's your AIO image. So then again, I'm just not touching. I don't want to touch this script because it means retesting everything, and it just no. Raspberry Pi doesn't deserve that much attention.
Well, it will change things for everything else that comes forward or what's already supported. So
yeah,
no reason.
exactly. I don't want to touch it. I did look at it though. So, however, that said, it's much easier to just post-process the existing AIO image and then just modify it, and then out there you've got a new one. It's just much easier to do that, and it's safer as well. It means I don't have to test it. I don't have to test or retest anything. So now here's the thing. I've written so much code over the last, like, what, 4 years since we started doing this port. I've written so much code, a lot of it which is not part of the OS. It's all of the build system to build and maintain all of this stuff. And I've actually reached a point where I just don't want to write code. Just don't want to. I still enjoy it. But it's one of those things where I have to really get into the zone and I have to think it through, and I'm like, I just don't want to do it. So I thought, why don't I get ChatGPT or some AI? In my case, it'll be ChatGPT because I have the paid for version, so it works pretty well actually. It writes good code, and certainly it writes good enough code for me to use to just modify it to make it work if it doesn't work. So I thought, because I need to think about what I want to build anyway, even if I don't write a spec, it's still in my head, and I just have to write the code according to what's in my head. But usually these days, because I don't have massive, I used to, before, like years ago, I used to have huge blocks of time. I'll give it a pot actually. I used to have huge blocks of time. There we go. Where I could just sit down, go into the zone, and just write all the code, and then that was it. But I don't anymore. So I just tend to write a spec of what I'm looking for as and when the ideas come to my mind, and then I eventually, when I have time, just sit down and implement it. But again, I don't want to implement it anymore. I'd rather just have someone else do the labor and then me just patch it up and make it work. So it's just easier, isn't it? Right. So what I've done is I've got this this specification here. So I've written down what the purpose is. So this information will be placed at the head of the script. Oh, actually, I should tell ChatGPT to do that. I've told ChatGPT it needs to use the BSD license clause below the shebang. The shebang is the hash exclamation mark.
Yeah.
interpreter. So it needs to include that. I've told it that it needs to be written in Bash and it can use non-POSIX compliant features, i.e. Extended globbing patterns and whatever else it needs to use. Well, it's interesting actually, because some of the people, there have been comments in the past about, not using bashisms, or people, features of Bash, the Bash shell that aren't in the regular Bourne shell, so they're not compatible. They're incompatible across shells. And and I'm like, why? What's the problem with that? Oh, because it won't work on other Unixes. Like, yeah, but this is
Well, it's
Slackware.
not
It's
fair.
it's for Slackware. It's not for other systems. So Slackware
Yeah.
it uses Bash, so you need to have Bash. It's not supposed to be portable. If it was, that'd be a different story, but it's not.
Make it
Um,
portable like corn shell.
yeah, I'm not I don't need it to be portable. So I'd much rather, like, it's like, it's like using Python or using Ruby or Perl or whatever. I'm writing it for that the only
Yeah.
difference, it's for a particular language. So to me, I'd rather use, given that the tool doesn't need to be portable, and it only needs to run on Slackware, which has the latest version of Bash, then I'm quite happy to just, yeah, I would rather the script be, I'd rather it use the feature set of the shell, so that the actual code is more compact. For example, it's not extensive uses of, because when you make the script more portable, inevitably it becomes longer or more verbose when it doesn't need to be, if you use the features.
Yeah. And it makes the environment where you're coding a lot easier to maintain. You don't have to like update Ruby gems or Python libraries or anything. You know, say Pat upgrades Ruby in the future, you don't have to worry about breakage. So
Well, that's, yeah. On a tangent now, actually, I've thought that before. Maybe we talked about it. I don't remember, but I think I was talking to David Cantrell about it in the interview, actually, and I said, yeah, maybe it was him, and I said something like, imagine if the Slackware packaging system was written in Python.
oh
I
my
mean,
god.
it would have been awful. I mean, I'm not disparaging Python at all, but I'm just saying that if it was written in Python, it would have had to have been all upgraded from Python 2 to Python 3, and then what? Python
Yeah.
4, whereas actually, because it's written in shell, the shell remains consistent. Even, okay, occasionally things change and you have to modify a little bit. Or in the case of grep, you call it with egrep rather than grep-e, and it bitches about, hey, you can't do that. So it's like, no. So
Yeah.
occasionally you have to go into, but it's so, or core utils is one of them, where they change the operation of things. But it's very far, and it's very infrequent that kind of change happens. And if it does, it's quite small scale, and you can work around it for a bit. But if the entire language changes, or the language changes to such an extent that you have to like do some serious code refactoring, I mean, to me that's just unacceptable. So I'm quite
Yeah.
pleased that we don't do that.
Plus, you don't have to
Yeah.
worry about like security flaws or any of that stuff if you
Mm.
do anything network related.
Well,
So
you have to. Well, yeah. I mean, you're relying on all the other external tool sets when it's a shell, because you're mostly calling other binaries to do stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you don't have to worry about your own code because it's all abstracted. Right. So yeah, I'm explaining what it needs to do. What I'm also going to do in terms of the code layout and design spec is I will upload a couple of the existing build scripts to ChatGPT to use as a reference. So I'm kind of hoping with that it might come out, it might build something that looks like I actually wrote it by hand. Not that I'm trying to pretend I did. It'd be quite nice to have it in the same style as all of the other ones that I
Yeah.
wrote. So I'm telling it that it needs to use getopt to handle command line operators. And I'm telling it I want to have both short and long command line operators, and it needs a help section. So I'm curious what it's going to provide in the help section to detail each command line. Right, what I want to do now is fill out this section of the AIO installer image, because I need to describe what the current partition layout looks like for the Raspberry Pi Slackware installer image. So what I'm going to do is go to, I'm going to unpack xz cat. Oh, hang on a minute. Where is it again? Oh yeah. Yeah, that's it. Bootware installer AIO Slackware BCM star Z. That's it. Image. That should do. Right. I've got loads of RAM on here, so on this is the Honeycomb LX2, so I've got a 16 gig of MPFS, so a 16 gig RAM disk on here.
Yeah.
Oh, it's already finished, right? Okay, so we've got our we've unpacked that image and it's expanded to 13 gigs. So what I want to do -L RPI. So I just want to capture. Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to capture what the partition layout looks like and paste that into there. So so that ChatGPT can understand what's there. And then I'm just going to write a description of what these partitions are. Okay, so I've written that. The other thing is, you know what? I don't know if I actually spelled proprietary. It's one of those words I always get wrong. At least I think so. So I'm just going to check it. I always want to know. Yeah, spelled it wrong. I think. Right. Yeah. One of these days. Oops. One of these days, I will spell it right. But mind you, I don't actually need to have it spelled correctly.
The way you're doing it reminds me of like agile development, but then you have ChatGPT rewriting it based on agile development. Like you're making a spec and then you can test it, and yeah. I did that some for a while for work. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, normally I used to do everything in my head and just write code because
Yeah.
usually I knew, once you've done it enough, you know it. But it's like now I don't. If it's something more complicated, or in this case, because I need to feed it to something else to build the code for me, then yeah, I need to write it down. It's just nice
You
to
can
get
like
the
add a you can like add a section that like is dedicated to testing, making sure parts exist and it meets a certain syntax or whatever.
Hmm.
So that'd
What
be
I want
really
to
easy
do,
to do.
yeah, would yeah. I know what you mean. I'm not going to go to that extent. I just want the code to describe it, and then
Yeah.
I'll test the code myself. What I need to do now though is I need to remind myself of what's actually in these partitions. Well, sorry, I know what's in the partitions. I need to remind myself of what the structure is because I can't remember. And looking at it's easier not to look at the code. It's easier just to mount the thing than it is to look at the code, the build script that is that builds this stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount the. So what I need to do is it's a 512 byte sector size. So we've mounted partition 3 to a temporary mount point, which is MNT/floppy, which we still have in Slackware. I don't know if anyone actually has a floppy disk, but I used it as my temporary mount point because I don't have any floppy disks. I have
I
a
don't think you
USB
can
floppy
even
disk.
buy floppy disks.
I don't know. I was in a charity shop today. I don't know what you call those in the States. What do you call charity shops? Where
Uh,
it's like people they give their goods to the shop and then the shop sell them and give them to charities. What do
oh
you
yeah,
call
it's
them?
like the Salvation Army or
That kind of place,
whatever.
yeah. So today I was in there and somebody was selling sorry, they were selling some old audio tapes, like for a Walkman or something. They were £8 each, which is like what, $10 per tape or something like that.
Oh yeah.
It's like what? I don't even have a unit that has a tape anymore. I still have DLT3 tape. I still have a DLT3 tape drive, which is SCSI 2, I think, and I have a couple of DAT drives that you take DDS3 tapes, but hmm. Which actually I quite like to use because I enjoyed having tape backups. Something special about a tape backup, but I don't have any way of connecting them, which is sad. Anyway, when you boot the Slackware installer, this partition is mounted by the Slackware installer, and the packages in this Slackware directory are used, well, they're installed from here, basically. So when you boot the Slackware installer, which I'm sure many of you seen me do a million times in the vlog, when it automatically detects, hey, you've got the all-in-one installer, do you want to install the packages from there? Yes, this is where it gets the packages from. So the Slackware directory is like this. Ah, that's what I was thinking of, yeah. So Slackware. So what I want to tell it is that, okay, so mount point / Slackware. Okay. Packages. Okay. Right, so we've got that. Okay, so we've got that, and then I'm going to umount floppy. No. Okay. Right. Okay, so we've unmounted that. Then I want to check. So right now I know where my Slackware packages are. So what I'll be doing there, of course I've just unmounted it, but actually let's remount it. Slackware current, and a. Oh, that's a thought. Ooh. Just had an idea. So here, this file contains, this file is automatically created by the installer build script, or the all-in-one build script. And the Slackware, the version of Slackware is set by the script. So when in a release, it'll obviously say Slackware 64.15.1 or whatever. So actually, I should tell ChatGPT that where is it? To consult the .slk tree file. Okay, I'll make a note of that. So okay, I'll tidy up the language on that later. So basically that means that the script will work. If for example, if a user wanted to build a, let me step back a bit. What I plan on doing for this is I'll release this onto the FTP site eventually when it's done, but only for Slackware current. I'm not going to make this as a version, I don't plan to anyway, release this as a, when I make when we make the Slackware release, I don't plan on releasing a version of the Raspberry Pi installer variant. It's just for experimentation purposes. That said, I might change my mind. It's been known before that I've changed my mind. But what this means is that if once I'll release this script as well, this will go out with all the others. And it means that a user will be able to run the script, point it to a version of Slackware, and then create their own version of Slackware. Their own installer build script of Slackware. So what am I talking about? The user will be able to the user will be able to take the script and then specify the version of Slackware. Or rather, actually, they won't even need to do that. They'll just say, here's my installer build script. They'll say, here's my all-in-one installer. The script will open it, understand which version of Slackware is relevant, cd into that directory, and just put the files there. So they'll be able to take a released version of the Slackware installer and modify it using the script to make to use the Raspberry Pi kernel fork. That makes sense. Okay, yeah. So next you mount D. Okay, so I've unmounted that. So then next fdisk /l. Right, so then I want to mount, that's the boot. What do we need to do here? Let me check actually. So let's mount -o. Okay, so let's mount the the S32 partition, which is the Raspberry Pi, which contains the Raspberry Pi's proprietary bootloader. So let's take that there. Floppy. Okay, so this is the Raspberry Pi proprietary stuff that contains the device tree blobs, which is like the map of the territory, the map of the hardware, map of the territory. That's Gregory Bateson from his anthropology stuff. Yeah, so this is the map of the hardware. I'm getting like domains mixed up here. I should still finish reading his book, actually, Steps, an Ecology of Mind, I think it's called. It's quite a good book, actually. I recommend it. So these are the device tree blobs that are a map of the hardware. And then we've got boot code, whatever the hell that is, I don't know. And then you've got the command line. So let's push the floppy. Okay. So that should be empty, yeah, apart from the comments. Then we've got the config, which just, what does the config do? Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. So the config, oh, wait a minute. So we've got, oh, that's right. So the Raspberry Pi kernel, or rather the Raspberry Pi proprietary bootloader loads U-boot, doesn't it? So do we have,
Yeah.
so do we have the Slackware kernel? We don't, do we? Because we don't need it. Ah, great.
No,
actually,
U-boot finds it later and loads it. So.
That's right. So actually, we don't need to mount this at all. There's nothing that this script needs to touch on this partition, is there?
Not really.
Nothing was nothing at all, actually. It's nothing.
Unless you're changing the version of U-boot.
Which I'm not. No. No, I don't need to do that. Don't need to change U-boot.
Yeah.
I mean, oh, well, so the plan here, at the moment, when you're ready to play around with it from the Raspberry Pi on the Raspberry Pi 5, I'll have already tested this on the Raspberry Pi 4 before I upload it, so I'll be certain that it works. And then what I'll do is I'll build a new version of the of U-boot. I'll probably take a release candidate of U-boot, which actually let's take it. Let's make thanks. Where's the see, where do I get the source from? Oh yeah, there it is. Oh, there it is. Yeah, so that has to be. So they're currently up to release candidate 5. So when I did a diff of the source tree between the one that we currently have in Slackware and this one, and there were updates to the Raspberry Pi 5 hardware model, the BCM, what is it, 2712 or something, whatever it is. Yeah, so what I'll do is before I upload this, I'll update the latest version of to the latest release candidate of U-boot, so it has a better chance of working on the Raspberry Pi 5. Doesn't mean it will, but it might work better. Who knows? Okay, so back to the point. We don't need it to do anything on here, but when I release it, the version of U-boot, which is actually this here, will be the latest version. So there we go. So pop-d, and then finally we will need to fdisk again. And then we want mount the show 20. We want this one here. Okay. Floppy. Okay. Yeah, here we go. So what we're going to have to do here. So we're going to have to do. You know, I wonder whether could I.
Oh, you can't see me at all now.
Oh, I wasn't looking.
There.
I was only looking at my screen actually. So, yeah, I can see you now. Now
Yeah.
drawn my attention. Okay. So basically, what we're gonna have to do is this. Okay. So this partition here that's mounted under MNT/floppy, this one actually, this 1.7 gig, this partition in Slackware becomes the /boot partition of the operating system. So in Slackware AH64, um, the SD card that you use to install Slackware from is repurposed automatically to become the boot. Well, yeah, the boot partition basically. The boot it contains the boot media for Slackware, and then you have the Slackware OS on an external piece of storage like a USB mounted, or rather a USB, an SSD drive in a USB caddy or whatever, or an NVMe or whatever it is. But the storage is separate. On that point, though, Brent, I've got me thinking is that again to take a digression here. By the way, can you hear me clearly and loudly enough? Because I'm quite away from my
Yeah, I can hear you okay.
microphone. Cool. Okay. Uh, yeah. On a tangent again. I was thinking because some users, they prefer to have the um, the OS on their SD card. I don't think that's a good idea at all. Just purely because SSDs tend to have quite a limited lifespan unless you tweak the parameters of the mount. Then, like for example, disable uh, updating of access time and stuff like that. It's
Yeah,
basically you're going to burn your SD card out pretty quickly, and it'll just break one day. So I never recommend that. But some people use it and are happy with it, and it's actually very common practice for the Raspberry Pi in general. But again, coming from a sysadmin background, that was my profession for many years. Bad idea, in my opinion. So I don't. That's why Slackware is not presented in that
yeah,
way.
you start noticing errors and you can't figure it out, and then all of a sudden it just doesn't turn on.
It just doesn't turn on, right? Yeah, so it's not a good idea. That said, if people want to do it, that's fine. There's nothing to stop you. But previously, I've suggested that you take what's called the bare installers, which is just the boot. Basically, it just contains the Slackware installer image, so it boots, but there's no packages on it. So all you actually have in the bare installer are these two partitions on the SD card, which is the Raspberry Pi proprietary stuff, and then the slash boot
You,
partition. So the slash boot partition is still on the SD card, but the OS can also be here. So what you could do though is instead of using a bare partition, the bare installer, the users could still boot the AIO image and then just delete this off the file system before and just
yeah,
replace it, make their own one. And the installer just won't detect it, and it'll say, where do you want to get your packages from then? And you can install it over NFS or whatever. So that's another option actually. I think that's quite a good option if people want that. Anyway, back to this. So what I need to do here, I need to tell Mr. GPT that it needs to delete everything. Actually, let's do it like this. It needs to delete all of this stuff. Well, all of that minus. Okay, so I've already put some of this. Delete existing kernel. Okay, from Slackware packages repo. Right, so I've got that already. 0. Delete existing kernel ATB. What's the other thing called? The installer image. So those would include these. Oh, the symlink needs to be recreated as well, doesn't it? So X Linux can remain because that's not related. Yeah, okay. So those need to be deleted. So what I'll have to do here is just make these. I think I'll do this like that. Oh, whoops, hold on. Yeah, what I'll end up doing, I won't do this live because that's crazy. But what I'll do is I'll make these so that I'll just include, I'll inform ChatGPT up front, just say, here are the commands you need to use, rm-f, delete all this stuff. And then when you install the package, so basically what will happen is I'll have it delete all image, all this stuff, because that's not, this is from the Slackware kernel. Then I will have to, let's just unmount that actually.
yeah, and then just copy over the kernel stuff from Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So if I do, what's the thing called again? Platform. Where would I keep the what?
I
Is it
don't know either. I always forget stuff. So
experimental? Oh, it's Slackware. That's it. RPI kernel fork. Oh, we can delete that. AWWW. Oh, let me do that while I'm doing it. Actually, I don't need that anymore. The WPA. That was before the right, gone. There we go. Bit of tidy up work done there. That was for when WPA supplicant broke. Right, so
yeah.
I basically unpack the kernel. Yeah, so it would be that. So that's basically what I would want. That would be, I'm going to capture this here. I'll just stick this up here. So that's going to be so basically they'll have to have a command line operator where you tell the script, here's where my Raspberry Pi kernel fork package is. Right, so that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just making, I won't do that here, but that's what I need to do. So if I unpack that, and then what I guess I'll have to do, look at the install script for it. Ooh, okay. Okay, so what I'm going to have to do here is basically grep. Oh, goodness. Oh, of course. Hold on a minute. Wait a minute. What am I going to have to... Ah, okay, okay. This is becoming more work than I thought.
Yeah.
Right, so what... Okay. So basically what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to cat the install script, egrep or grep-e up cd boot like this. What? Oh, because I have to escape that, I guess. Hmm? Oh, has a space, that's why. Okay, so I need to grep all of that. Okay, oh goodness me. Okay. Actually, you know, I'm glad that I actually am starting to appreciate doing this and setting it all up in advance so I know what to expect. So basically it's going to have to go in, okay, so this is from the partition in the image. Delete all this stuff and then okay, then it's going to have to unpack the RPI kernel fork package, right? It's going to have to create the symlinks. And it's going to, so we're going to have to pass all of this. So basically something like said s/, oh, well, in fact, actually, I'll tell you what, it's easier than that. Just do fork dash.
Yeah. Yeah, just pop, right.
Oh, it's actually string 2, I think. Oh, what have I done here? It's probably because it doesn't like the semicolon. Yeah, and then it's just D, or is it?
You could just print the last one in the column before.
Just do that as well.
Yeah,
There
there
we
you
go.
go.
Right, so yeah, you know, actually, I could let ChatGPT figure out that out, but I know what. Let me just from.
Just
Okay, so
ChatGPT.
the only thing is, right? So I would have to explain to ChatGPT. I'll think about how to do this, and maybe do another podcast once I've figured it out. But basically, it needs to look. So it needs to look like this.
This is going to be Slackware RM ChatGPT edition.
Yeah. Right, so then, um, okay, so if I was actually going to do this by hand, I would just do it. I would do. In fact, I wouldn't say. I mean, like, this is the thing, right? I like. So if I just do, first of all, I do it like this: grep-e. First of all, get rid of that useless cat. So I do install doings like that. That would be one thing to do. But then you can actually do that with sed. You wouldn't need awk. I just don't. My regex. Years ago, I actually I had to do something for a customer at work, and he wanted this really complicated regular expression to move, but they were changing the back end systems for this website. And it was on the Akamai content delivery network. So I was like, okay, it's like a front end wrapper to all this back end infrastructure. And it's like, so we're moving this back end infrastructure, and we've got this URL patterns that look like this, and new ones need to look like that. And we need to have it redirect or rewrite under the covers, all this stuff. How do we do that? I'm like, well, regex will do that. Do you want to write one? He goes, no. I'm like, oh. So this is before ChatGPT and anything that there was. So I was like, so I just actually read, because I knew which regex engine the Akamai uses. So I read I think it's Google one, Google's RE2 engine. So I read the documentation for how the RE2 engine works, or rather what the syntax is, because it's different from, say, Perl's regular expression engine. It's different from Seb's. So I read it. It's been about 2 hours reading it. Actually understood it. Wrote a regex, and it worked. And then I promptly forgot all of it. It's just like, it's like one of those things regexes. One of my mates told me the other day, he said, if you understand regexes, I think it's like a rite of passage if you understand how to write a complicated regex. So I did, and now I can't. I only know basic stuff anymore. It's too much for me. It fitted in my brain one time for a couple of hours. Anyway, so I'll let ChatGPT write that. I'll figure out how to instruct it to do that, and then it'll probably get it wrong. Usually does. Okay, so that we do that. Okay, so but where are we? Right, so we deleted that. That needs to be recreated. Okay, this is when we're going to say, right, that's okay. So we are here. Q. Did I unmount the? I did, didn't I? Damn. Mount. Is that the one?
Yeah, you were going to remount it.
Yeah, which one is it? What is it? That one? We'll find out, won't we? Yeah. Okay. So. Okay.
And I forget what you were talking
about. I don't worry. I've got it. I'm on it. I'm on it, Brent. I've got the thread. Okay. So if I go to, so here's the thing, right? So if I do, okay, I'm just gonna do this easily because I can't remember how to do it with what we're going to have to do now. So once the script is recreated, once it's installed, oh, I forgot to even write that. It needs to actually copy the. Okay, so it needs to. First of all, it needs to copy the image. So kernel etb. Oh, goodness, system. What else? Init.rd. Okay, copy those files, make symlinks, and then what we have to do is update the Slackware installer image. So if I go to here, and this is this actually, if I compressed it or not? Oh yeah, exec cat init cpio-pio-di v boom. So this is the Slackware installer. Okay, so then what we're going to have to do is unpack the Slackware installer. Goodness me. Okay. Unpack Slackware. Okay. Replace kernel modules within the Slackware installer image. So unpack Slack installer. I can't even going to type it properly anymore. Unpack that. Go into the lib. Where is it? Lib modules. Okay. So go into rm-rf lib. So basically, it's going to have to rm-rf lib/modules star, and then it's going to have to unpack the Slack RPI Slackware kernel package lib/modules into there. I'll just write there for the time being. I know what I mean. And then I've got that. Okay, so we have to unpack that. So basically, we basically rm-rf that tar xz xf. Where did I put the kernel fork? There it is. So then we'd have to do tar x lib/modules. See, oh, star dot dash c dot. I think I've got that right. Possibly. Might have really messed that up. Oh. There we go. Although it's going to dump it in lib modules module. Yeah, okay. So yeah, we go back to the, okay, so we do go back to, so that would make it easier. We go back to the mount point, just do it like that. So we'd unpack, we'd have to do that. I'm starting to wonder, Brent, whether I should just write the code by hand now.
I know. I was thinking about that. Some things I've been trying to get ChatGPT to do is more complicated than just writing the code and just like have it check it later on to see if it's right instead.
Yeah. So actually we can just do rm-rf lib module. Oh my goodness, I'm trying to type too fast. Right. Okay. Unpack. Okay, cool. But that's cool. And then we just need to do, it'd be like depth mod. Is it, do you have to do it depth mod? Where you do it now?
Yeah, you do.
It's all right. Where do I put it? It's in
Oh, yeah.
oh, that's it. So we do oh actually, yeah, okay. So we wouldn't need to LD config, but you do det mod dash b, something like that maybe.
It's looking for the kernel on your host system. I think you had to tree
Yeah.
root into that and run it.
Oh no, you don't. You don't. You just have to well, it's just a case
Right.
of it's been so long since I actually did this stuff. I've only been maintaining Slackware ARM like really over the last few months. I haven't developed any, haven't done any development on this stuff for ages. It's amazing how quickly you can well, no. Where do we put it? So find lib modules xlogs. Yeah, you could do. Oh, okay. So where are we there? Oh, I know. So we're in the roots. Okay. So what you do is you do det mod dash b dot, and then you put the version. So the version would be okay. So actually, we'd have to do yeah. Actually, you know what? I wonder if I can do 0 to 9 star arm star, because that would expand. Hang on, if I put, oh, so what am I talking about? What am I on about? That's, of course, it's a bad version. I got the version correct, but that's because cool. So det mod like this dash b dot. Oh, really? Oh, yeah. I forgot. Forgot to put base name in there. There we go. So that's what that's going to do is there we go. Perfect. So that's going to, goodness me. Okay. Update module. Okay. For Slackware installer. I think that's pretty much it actually. So that will basically update the module dependencies within the lib modules directory. And what's that doing now? Oh, that's because I copied it there. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
that's
you
cool.
just impact it.
Yeah. I think that's it actually. I don't think there's because everything else, the Slackware Raspberry Pi kernel fork has the same structure. It's identical to the Slackware. Wait. Yeah, okay. On that point, so it's identical to the Slackware, the upstream Linux kernel. So I think in terms of modifications, that's all I would need to do. The only problem we have potentially
Firmware.
no, there's no firmware problems because the firmware is already this
Oh,
AIO
never
on
mind.
each. This is the
Never
Raspberry
mind.
Pi. We don't have any of
Yeah.
that problems. It's just replacing the kernel. The only thing that we may have an issue with is the floppy. Do we still have that? Yeah. Is the X Linux config, because when you boot, or actually, would it be a problem? Because
The mitigation's off.
oh, for the installer, yeah, there's no point having the mitigation on the installer. For the OS, that's not switched off, but on the installer it is, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know if it
It's
makes any
funny.
difference. But the only thing I'm just thinking of out loud is, when you boot, currently, when you boot, oh, hold on, we have, where is it? Docs, Slackware. So we go to, oh yeah, the new Slackware docs server is so much faster. So thanks a lot to Eric Cameliers or Alien Bob for updating it, upgrading that server.
Man,
Let's have a look. Yeah, so what I'm thinking of here, where I'm going, is that when you upgrade, or it's not an upgrade, when you transition to the Raspberry Pi kernel fork, you lose access to the serial console, don't you?
yeah, you have to edit the init tab to go to the device that the Raspberry Pi kernel
Is
is
that what
for.
it is? Okay, so
Yeah, I think
yeah,
it's like ETYAMA0 or something. I
okay.
think that's
So
what they use, but it's been a while
yeah,
since I looked at that.
one of the guys on the forum explained how to fix it. So I thought that I had linked to it from here. But thinking about it, actually, it doesn't matter, because the documentation that we have um, for installing the Raspberry Pi with Slackware, actually we use the HDMI monitor and keyboard anyway, don't we? So I mean,
Yeah,
you can use the serial console if you want to with the official Linux with the official Slackware images, but it's documented to use the monitor and keyboard. So actually, do I really care that it doesn't work? Probably not. Actually, wait though. The only thing. Oh, okay. Oh, goodness me. Okay, so it does matter because oh God, what if I take it on, Brent? I thought this was a good idea.
oh, like what?
I thought this was going to be easy. Okay, so
Yeah.
okay, so this, however, okay, so as it stands, um, I think everything will work, but you will hit this here. That you'll boot the OS, and it will start spewing out these error messages or warnings on your screen. So what we will have to do is modify. What I'll have to do is modify. Oh, I'll have to edit the bootloader config and locate. Oh my gosh. Okay, right. So what I'm going to have to do. Okay.
There you go.
Right. No, it's cool. It's cool. It's cool. What we're going to do. So there are going to be some post-processing businesses going on here. In the installer, okay, I'm going to have to, this will be outside of this script. But what I'm going to have to do is in the Slackware installer, I'm going to have to add in some extra post configuration scripts that silently change the configuration, the OS config, once once all the packages are installed. So this post install script, it'll just these install touch-up scripts will be part of it. I'll just make one script that lives in the installer that detects if you're running the Raspberry Pi kernel fork, and then if you are, it makes these changes for you. Because I'm going to assume that if you install with the Raspberry Pi kernel fork, you won't want to transition to, well, I'm going to assume that because I'm not going to do anything else about it. I'm going to assume that you want to remain with the Raspberry Pi kernel fork. So it's going to modify these, it'll have to modify the bootloader config and the init tab, like you said earlier. So it'll just have to make these
Yeah.
changes so that when you boot the OS, it just works. Yeah, cool. And then also I'll have to make it so that it modifies the Slack package config to blacklist the official Slackware kernel packages, because otherwise it'll it'll transition you to the regular official kernel, and then you won't be
Yeah. And
in
then
a place
your
you go,
computer doesn't turn on.
yeah, or whatever. Yeah. Okay, yeah. But I think actually that's cool. That's cool. I don't think there's anything else. I think that that's actually it. Um,
Yeah.
okay. And then basically we'll have to, yeah, switch that out. That those changes I just described won't be in the those will be part of the installer. So I'll have to write those scripts. Oh, you know what? I'll have ChatGPT write that script as well, probably. Okay. Yeah. So basically, I'll have to write another script that lives in. Oh wait, what's this? Where did I put the? Oh, here. Yeah. So that'd be like user lib setup. Or would I have it in? Where would I have it? In ARM Slack post install scripts.
Yeah. Under the, yeah.
Remove installer. That it? No, that's not it. Um. Oh no, maybe I'd put it. Why have I? Hold a minute. So where does this call from? Set config. Da, 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 da. So that sets the environment. But there are some other ones that live in share platform store helper. Well, can't remember why I've split it up like this. Why is
That was when we were setting up Grub for the honeycomb, and we decided to make it so that you could adjust it for U-boot or Grub or whatever the scripts in that helper directory.
yeah, I know. I can't remember
Saved some
why.
time, but I always lose track of where everything's at. So, yeah, I wrote that. I don't remember writing that.
Well, I don't remember why I split it up like this. So some of the scripts are in user lib setup, and then there are
Hmm.
others in user share HWM configure. Oh, maybe it's because. Hmm,
Yeah, I'd
hmm.
have to look at why we did that. Maybe look at my chat logs or something.
Hold on. No, no, it's in. Might be in here actually. Oh, it didn't do too badly in here. Oh, look at this. I've actually documented.
Do you remember writing that?
I clapped myself. No, I don't remember writing it, but I'm glad that I
And
did
you
it.
even made an example.
So this is, yeah. This documentation is currently incomplete, but eventually, if enough people are interested in, making Slackware ARM run on other hardware models, I might actually complete it. But for the time being, it probably serves as enough to stimulate my own memory. So blah,
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah. Okay, so there's primary launch of this, runs everything, and then examining hardware model. Okay,
Yeah.
post fixes it. Oh, it's still not telling me why I really did it like that though. But
It's probably in like one of the comment headers on one of those files, um, on the file system. But I haven't looked at that in so long.
it okay. I think it's because there is a at the moment. All I can say is there is obviously a very good reason why I've done it like this. I wouldn't have accidentally. I wouldn't have just gone. Oh, I don't know. I'll just do a different
I
way. Then.
think it was so that we could differentiate between bootloaders. That's what I seem to remember. And it was when we added in Grub, and then we wanted to keep the Raspberry Pi bootloader and the Rock Pro and stuff all separate. Because I think we have different versions of U-boot for each hardware model too. Some of them are
Yeah,
different.
it
So
might be something to do. Yeah, I think there's different. Yeah, I know that the scripts are in here. I know what they do, but it's just a case of why. I think it's to do with the order in which things run. Unless I
yeah,
planned to, I'll have to have a look at the script. I'll figure that one out later. I'll figure that out. It's not difficult. Um, okay, yeah, that's cool. So I'll figure out where to put that later. But I think that's it really. So in terms of the script, I've captured, I think, all of the um, the main logic of what what needs to happen, uh, the main functions that need to happen. And I think that's it really. I'd end up with an AIO image, and I just need to then
I
change the
forget.
installer.
Does the Raspberry Pi kernel build an image that works for all of them, or is it just or a kernel that works for all of them, or is it got to have separate kernels for each hardware model of Raspberry Pi?
The way it works at the moment
I forget.
is it .conf? Oh, that's a directory, isn't it? It just does. I think it does
Yeah.
RP. There it is. Yeah. So this is doing. That's a good point. It's using the RPI 4 version. Hmm.
Hmm.
So I wonder whether that's a good. I hadn't thought of that actually.
Yeah. And there's no way to like specify on the fly like what one to build because you're just building it.
I want. Yeah, exactly. So it's at the moment it's going to make a kernel that has the Raspberry Pi 4 config. But I wonder whether there's a version that you can just, because at the end of the day, it's a kernel. So unless there's anything that's
Yeah.
hard coded in it, I mean, given that the generic kernel works across the board, unless there's anything in this config that's hard coded that means it doesn't work on the Raspberry Pi 5, I don't see why they couldn't. Maybe they have a. Uh, where I'm going with this is that maybe there's a def config that sets the appropriate options for both the 4 and the 5.
Yeah.
I don't know
Um,
actually. That's a good point. Um, that is a good point.
but
I
then
don't.
like merging it in, you have to keep merging it every new kernel update if there's like a change made. So, like if you made a universal def config, I mean, you'd have to keep making sure everything matches up every kernel release.
Yeah, I wonder though actually whether actually that's a good point. If I do, oh, I haven't got the. Yeah, I'd have to have a look at the
There's
build.
probably a way to do it, but I'm not sure right now.
Yeah,
For
because
now, we just
yeah,
name that script the RPI one. Just change it to RPI 4 and RPI 5. And I
yeah,
guess you could just control it by the symlink. You don't have to necessarily rewrite anything. You just redo the symlink in the alt
yeah,
kernel.conf. That might work.
yeah. I can easily, yeah, I can easily change this so that it can accommodate different BCM names. Yeah, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
That's easy enough. Don't need ChatGPT to do that. Actually, I wouldn't get ChatGPT to do that. Um, yeah, I could easily do that. I'm just thinking because at the moment it means the way that it's
Separate kernels, right?
exactly. I don't. I mean, this is just another annoying thing about the Raspberry Pi. I mean, to me, it's just annoying, isn't it? It really is. If I uh, actually, what's you know what? I wonder whether there's if I do if it downloads the kernel fork. Let's see.
It's publishing.
No, this is the which version is it? Oh, actually, I can build the latest version anyway. So I'll download the kernel fork. And
Yeah.
if you guys are watching this wondering, he's doing it as root. My God, he's not.
Yeah. Just do it always as root.
I'm running the script as root, but actually, with the download does not run as root. It switches to the user nobody using SU.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It does not. It does not do a git pull as root. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I have a bash alias that does that. If I run it as root by accident, it just changes to user nobody.
Oh,
Just so I have to think about it.
oh, okay. But yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I forgot about that. Damn. Further considerations. It's sounds like German.
Do something about my dyslexia today.
Yeah. Um,
Hmm.
Okay, but even so, in terms of the script, though, it doesn't matter because even if I have a different kernel, it's just the kernel package is going to be supplied by a command line operator, so it doesn't matter from that script's from the perspective of that script, it doesn't matter. So okay, what I'm going to do while that's doing that is if I where I put it now.
I want to
Okay,
see
so
how
that's
fast
actually.
it builds.
Oh well,
Maybe.
yeah, it won't be. Uh, the other thing is, I'm not sure where it puts the files now. Probably in here somewhere.
Some alt kernel packages, I think.
Oh, it's going to be a lot in here actually. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I just put everything wherever I want and update the symlinks in the root directory. Because you have so many places you put stuff, I have to figure it out sometimes. And I wrote a script called setup.sh
Ah,
that sets it all up. I don't have to think about it.
there it is.
But it makes the build system work and everything can find everything.
It's looking. I just want to see what def configs there are. Oh, it's ARM64, isn't it, in the kernel? Here we go. Arch ARM64 configs.
Yeah, the 2712 is the Raspberry Pi 5.
Okay. Yeah. So if let's just see what I bet it's massive, isn't it? But that's the RPI 4. That's the RPI 5.
It's not that many.
Oh, they're using 16K pages here. Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I
What,
did see
what,
that when looking at it last week.
oh, there are virtually no differences. Look.
Yeah, it's just a few options.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, that might make it a lot simpler. Just build it all.
Yeah. Well, no, because the Raspberry. Hold on. You know, actually, the only thing is, I don't know what the effect of that would be on the Raspberry Pi 4 if we did that. I could try it. I could just switch the def config to this and see what happens.
Yeah,
Yeah. Although it's take okay, yeah, that's fine. I understand
but
this.
it'd probably break the Raspberry Pi 3 stuff if anyone's using it. I'll have to
Uh,
change the def config for that. I think that's a 2837 def config.
mm,
But I didn't see it when you'd use the find command, so I don't know. Um,
okay. I
that
wonder though.
16K pages thing is what I mean.
I mean, clearly it must work. So for the 16K pages, I tried it on the Rock Pro 64 and it didn't. The machine didn't boot. I haven't tried it recently, as in the last 2 years or something, but it didn't work the way my
Yeah.
last did. Um,
Well, it probably works now. It was just when it first came out, when they first enabled it.
do you know? I wonder whether what I might do actually. I could expand, like as we were just, to revert to what we were just talking about. I could probably, I might make the Raspberry Pi kernel fork stuff the build two different packages then, because I mean it makes sense given that that's how the Raspberry Pi developers are doing it. I could just change this so that just the tag is different. So that's perhaps RPI 4 and then RPI 5. I might
Yeah,
do that actually. Yeah, I might do that.
it might be the simplest way to do it.
Yeah, okay. I'll make a note of that. God, this is like the thing with Raspberry Pi is it's just, oh, Raspberry Pis. Raspberry Pis. Everything else is generic. No, Raspberry Pi. Gotta be different. Yeah,
Yeah,
Raspberry Pi. Cool. Okay, but it's not like it's not a big deal actually though. Actually, yeah. It's not a big deal because I think, in fact, I'm just thinking in my head, the script's going to be pretty straightforward, actually. I'll just add another, I'll just change a command line operator or something. It'll just pick one or the other and just set the right. Yeah, that's not a big deal. It's only going to mean changing the documentation and making a note, doing an announcement on the forum that, hey, if you've got a Raspberry Pi 4, you need to now change you need to download a different file. Yeah, so I think I've captured all of the milestones of converting the AIO image to the Raspberry Pi kernel fork version. So I need to get ChatGPT to build it. I wonder though, with first, maybe I'll update the Raspberry Pi kernel fork build script instead. Actually, don't know, we'll see. But I think that'll do for now. So
Yeah.
it's quite a long vlog, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you managed to make it to the end, if you did manage to make it to the end, let me know in the comments and then we'll know.
Just
We'll give you the prize.
if you're still alive.
Yeah. All right, dude. Good to talk to you. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right.